allow me to lay some groundwork for everybody here. All right. In the last couple of years, I definitely feel like mainstream gaming has fallen off quite a bit. There used to be a belief or a feeling that if you were going to play a game from a major AAA studio, it was going to be amazing, right? It was going to blow your socks off. It was going to be groundbreaking, milestone making, a must play experience. And if you miss out on a major AAA game, man, you really missed out on some of the best stuff of the year. Sadly, I hate to say it, in the last couple of years, this has not been the case. Tons of AAA studios are now releasing games that are subpar, unfinished messes, underwhelming, a sequel that's just not as good as the original, a game that's made, as you could tell, just to print money for a bunch of people in a boardroom or a bunch of stockholders that doesn't really have any artistic merit. And this is becoming more and more and more common. It's sad, but it's true. You know, how underwhelming was last year's hardcore gaming season? I wouldn't have even called it that. There were so few big releases, and the ones that came out weren't that good. I could probably count on one hand the amount of good games that I played between September and December of last year. So, that being said, people have requested more and more that I play indie games. They say, man, there's all these independent games that come out and you miss out on, Phil. Now, of course, up to this point, my ability to play indie games has been severely hampered by the platforms which I can play and capture games on. But that's not a factor anymore because now I have an incredibly high-end setup. I have a high-end gaming PC. I have a high-end capture and streaming setup. I have the capability to play whatever I want. So indie games now are on the menu, as they say. And in the last couple of months, I've played some really outstanding ones. For example, Killer Frequency, which started off slow, but ended up being a really unique first-person murder mystery style game that I really enjoy. What about Balatro, the card game with that focuses on poker, but turns it into something very different, a roguelike poker game that I've really, really enjoyed playing and like going back to play and chill with you guys from time to time. And of course, there's the Coin Game, an awesome arcade simulator that allowed me to relive a lot of the ticket style games of chance that I really enjoyed playing back when I was a kid or over the years, and now have it in a virtual environment and share that with you. Plus, it had mini golf and other things too that was quite fun. So those indie games that I've played have done pretty good, man. Really, honestly. I mean, I really enjoyed them, and I'm happy that people have suggested them and the like. But admittedly, I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical that indie games will bring people out and that people will engage and support with the content, because historically, whenever I've tried indie games, they don't really work. I would argue that games like Balatro and Killer Frequency have been exceptions where they have done well. The streams have actually been supported and attended decently, and I'm happy for that, okay? And I'm grateful for that. So with last night's stream of Mouthwashing, this was a chance. I didn't know how it was going to go, all right? And I was curious to see what the game was, how it would turn out, etc. So, by the way, for the record, I was already interested in the game, and then someone gifted it to me, which was very nice. We had talked about it on a stream a week or two ago as a possibility of a game to test out. Now, from what I'm to understand, the game is very, very short. It's only like 3-4 hours long, and it's all pretty much narrative-based, but it's horror, it's psychological thriller-style game that's very adult-oriented. So, I said, you know what? For variety this week, let's give it a shot. Let's give it a try. People say more indies, so I'll give you more indies. And let's give it a go. Let's give it a run. So, here's how it went last night, okay? By the way, I should use my blower tool because I'm seeing some hair and dust is accumulating on the keyboard. So I should probably clean it. Okay, so in regards to Mouthwashing, what do I think about it, okay? Interesting visual style that's kind of like, pixel graphics, but also has this like filter over it. It tries to make it look like retro, but future at the same time. Interesting premise. I don't want to really spoil it because the entire game is just story, but it is a horrific kind of premise. If you were actually in this situation in real life, you'd probably be scared crapless, if you know what I mean. And it's very grim, okay? I am enjoying it. We're 2 hours in and some grim stuff has happened. And the thing is that it jumps between two timelines lines, so you don't know what's really going on or what happened in each timeline, and you're like, what's going on here or there? So I'm actually enjoying it a good amount, okay? I actually liked being immersed in a narrative game for the first time in a long time. Haven't really been immersed in a narrative-based game for a bit, so it was fun for that. But here's the fun thing, okay? Here's the fun thing. Here's the funny thing is what I meant to say. Sorry, I'm distracted by this pain. It really is hurting me. The funny thing is thus. Whenever I try a game like this, you get a mixed audience. I would argue that half the audience that was here last night was having a great time and was enjoying ourselves and immersed in a new kind of game and its dark tones and stuff like that. And then the other half just sat here complaining this game sucks, it's boring, it's a walking simulator. And it's like, I remember the first game that anyone ever called a walking simulator from back in the day was a game called Gone Home, also an indie PC game. And at that time, no one really knew that game developer. It was kind of an unknown. Today, they're much more well-known. But that was like the first game where you really just walk around and you explore, and it has this eerie atmosphere and this ongoing mystery, and you have to read a lot of dialogue and hidden logs and journals and things to get the gist of what the story is. But by the end of the day, Gone Home was actually a really good game. All right, it was. It was actually quite entertaining and a fun game at the end. It was kind of like a laugh out loud ending because the whole game you're scared at stuff, and then at the end, nothing happens, okay? So, ever since I played that, there's been all these different games over the years. Everyone's gone to the Rapture. Remember that one? Hell, horror games like the whole Amnesia series, right? And they're all various different degrees of thriller, mystery, horror, but they're all the same premise. You're walking around in first person, you're doing some dialogue, or you're reading, or you're trying to discover what's really going on in the story. I feel like this all started back in the day with Telltale games, but evolved into this first person gameplay mechanic. Because with Telltale games, it's all, you're like playing the role of the characters and picking dialogue choices, right? While in these games, you're in first person actually moving around, so you have more of an element of control, even though, admittedly, you probably don't, right? Like, you're probably still on rails, and you're in for the same ride as everyone else. It's not like you're really going to change the outcome of the game that much with how you play it, but I get that some people don't like narrative-based games, all right? But last night, I feel like I had a great time with this game. I got $50 of support playing Mouthwashing, okay? Now, I think you're starting to see the point that I make when I talk about playing indie games. It seems like increasingly there's more demand for me to play them, especially as AAA releases are faltering and failing and not as good as they used to be. But it seems like when I play indie games, it's incredibly hard to get people to actually show up and engage and support with them. Or support them, I should say. Again, sorry, I'm not talking properly today because of the pain in my shoulder. It's actually quite distracting me, okay? So yeah, like last night, I'm having a great time. Everyone's, we're engaging, we're hanging out, we're talking about the game, and then there's just no support coming in. And I'm like, you understand you want more of this, right? I get it. You'll want more, but then you have to actually show up and support it. And that's not happening, Admittedly, sometimes with other games like Balatro, sometimes we have great nights, sometimes we don't, but we have had some great nights with Balatro, okay? But particularly last night, I was disappointed because here's a game that's unique, that's fun, that's interesting, that's indie. We're supporting it by playing it and giving it exposure. It seems like a great game that a lot of people would enjoy, but where's the actual support for the stream? Okay? So this sadly makes me second guess my desire to want to play a bigger variety of games. If the games that get the level of support that I need to operate a business are games that are AAA big releases, then I need to play those. You get it? Like, I get it. Like, people complain, oh, you always play this game in this series, and you always play the same game here. Why aren't you branching out? Well, I am. But the fact is that when I try to branch out, it doesn't always work out, and here's a case in point, okay? So I'm not sure what to do to remedy the situation. It just seems like support is kind of all over the place. Like, for example, I played Indiana Jones, and there were nights when we played Indiana Jones and we far exceeded the goals and did 2-3 goals in one stream. There were other times when I played Indiana Jones and it was on the slower side. So is it necessarily the game, or is it just who can actually show up for a stream? Because honestly, it is a good variety of people who support my content. It's not what the detractors say because they're morons. They think they're under the impression one person supports all my content. I'm not kidding you. They're that brain dead crazy. They're in this weird cult that legitimately believes one person impersonates like 40, 50, 60 different accounts and comes to my streams and just supports this. It's the same person doing it under different names. I wish I was making that up, but that's how fucking nuts they are. That's how far gone they are. They actually believe that. So, yeah, I will admit, are there people who are regulars who come by and every once in a while will drop a big contribution and it helps the stream out a ton? Absolutely. Is that what happens every single stream? Absolutely not. Not at all. That's, there is a good variety of people that come by and support over different games, different times, and sometimes they'll show up for a game, sometimes they won't. So, last night, was this simply a situation where the people who were supportive couldn't show up? Not enough people outside of them were interested in this indie game? Was it just a bad night in general? Because this happens. Some people says it seems like Monday nights are always your worst. I don't know. Are they? Because that's the thing. I don't really care or track. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not tracking, oh, is this one particular day every week the slowest day? I don't look at that at all. But when this happens, right, it makes me think, should I listen to what seems to be a vocal minority? Meaning the people who want indie games more may very well be loud and demanding it, but may not be the crowd that's there to support the streams behind the scenes. A lot of people come by and they'll do a tip here or there, they'll drop some memberships, they'll do a big super chat, and then we don't see them for weeks on end. And that's fine. They're the silent majority. Get it? The majority of people who are watching the content and possibly supporting it are not the people who are here all the time talking and asking for stuff. So, like, here's the thing. I want to play more games like Mouthwashing. I like this game. I would like to finish it later this week. I would like to do more variety of games that aren't necessarily 40-plus hour commitments of my time. I feel like doing a better variety of shorter games actually fits my stream format better than say, oh, I have to play this game now for 2 months, right? If anything, I wish that I would play more games like this because I do feel like this would be more beneficial to the business instead of just being committed to games that are going to take so long to finish. If we could beat a game in a couple nights and then we could jump in and out of more games and get more exposure to more games, I think it works, right? But I need people to show up and support them. So last night, all right, after thinking about this, I'm going to chalk it up to a one-night deal. That's not a big deal, all right? I am going to finish Mouthwashing later this week. But when I actually stream it again, which it looks like it's going to likely be Thursday night, I need people to actually show up and engage and support with the second stream of Mouthwashing, all right? So I hope that you will, especially those people who claim, oh, I like this game or whatever. Then please support it. I want more variety. I want shorter games from smaller studios to be part of my rotation. I want to be able to jump in and out of games between big games rather than it just be big game, big game, big game, big game. I like to have these things to break it up in the middle. I think that it works for variety purposes. In addition, this should be said. Indie games, all right, aren't necessarily games that are getting the giant levels of known exposure. Yeah, I want to see my camera blinked over there. I want to make sure it was still working. So, for example, I would bet that far less people have played Mouthwashing than, say, have played an Assassin's Creed major release that's going to come out. Or, you see, it's hard because there's so few AAA games that are good now, I can't even really call any out. Like, for example, let's say the next God of War was coming out next month. Tons of people would play that, so we all know what it is. Versus Mouthwashing, it's more of an idea where you're going to get exposed to something new and different. You're going to get more of a shocking surprise and variety when you watch these kind of small-time game streams than if you're, say, just watching a game that you know everyone's playing, right? So, hopefully, all right, this will work out. Hopefully, when I go to finish mouthwashing later this week, we will turn it around and we will actually hit the goal that night. And that will give me more confidence in playing these kind of indie games in the future. I'm going to chalk it up to like a one-off night that was off. All right. But if I start to see a pattern, if we play these indie games and people don't show up and support them, then I'm not going to be able to play them. And that's sad. I want to play them. I feel like they do fit in there, right? Now, going along that same vein, obviously, guys, we want to keep the momentum rolling this week. Yesterday was a road bump. It really was. Yesterday was a bump that slowed us down, and now we have to get that momentum back. So let's, on this very stream of this podcast and Dark Souls with mods, let's hit the goal. That way we get to 93. Let's get the momentum rolling back in the right direction so that we can get this marathon going later this week, okay? So what I like to do, we have a lot of people who contributed. I want to shout out all your contributions right now, see where we're at, and then we can move on to some other topics and the like and chill, and hopefully we get some good momentum building this morning, all right? So let's start on the YouTube side of things, then we'll go to tips, and then we'll see where we're at. I don't think there's been anything on the kick side. I'll be honest. Seems like in the last several days to week, the kick stuff has slowed down. We had a really strong end of January, and then all of a sudden it really slowed down here so far in February on kick. I hope that will turn around and flip and pick up, okay? So let's start on the YouTube side of stuff. We start out this morning with Perry the White gifting 5 memberships to the community. Thank you so much, Perry, for that. I appreciate that. Let's get that on the leaderboard here. That's the equivalent of $15 of support to get started, and I hope that everyone who got gifted a membership enjoys it. Thank you so much, Perry. Okay, we have Dark Souls Master with a $2 super chat saying, I've lost my job. Here's a little to help. If you lost your job, I'm going to be honest, Dark Souls Master, you probably shouldn't be doing a super chat. At the same time, I don't believe you. Just being honest. I don't think that someone who just lost their job would immediately run to stream and send a contribution. But thanks for the super chat regardless. Okay. All right. Bonos Tecmo did a $5 super chat and says, longtime viewer, first-time contributor, excited for Smart Guys. Wrestling is still real to all of us, damn it. Well, I'm pretty sure that's false. I think you have contributed before. But yeah, I'm excited for Smart Guys tonight for sure. Wrestling commentary show tonight, 6:45 p.m. Pacific time. It'll be broadcast over on my @DSP Reacts channel. That's how you can find it on YouTube. Search for @DSP Reacts, or on my Kick channel, DSP Gaming Reel. Good show tonight because we're going to be recapping the Royal Rumble in detail, and then talking about last night's Monday Night Raw, which set up several big plot lines leading to the Elimination Chamber and then possibly into WrestleMania. So it should be a really good show tonight. I hope that you guys will join me for it and support it. Remember, there's a change. Now what happens is on that show, all right, it is split between myself and Ashton. So if whatever we make on that show gets split by half and it's enough to reach a goal, we're going to count it towards my goal streak. So tonight, the success of Smart Guys could get us to our actual marathon later this week. So let's see how Smart Guys goes tonight, okay? Cool. Then we have Princess Luna with a very generous $20 super chat saying, I'm hyped for Dark Souls. Thank you so much, Princess Luna. What a very generous super chat. Oh, by the way, this is wrong. This is